Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Mars TV. Today's episode is with Dennis Silin. Dennis is an entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Exodus Orbitals, a platform dedicated to providing a satellite as a service application hosting in space. Thank you, Dennis, for being with us today.
Hello, Tara. Pleased to connect with you. Yes, have done a number of things in space industry and also something related to the Martian exploration as well.
Great. So we're happy to hear what you have to tell us about who you are and how you got here and what is it that you do.
Yes, thank you. So my career started as a software developer, many years ago in Toronto, Canada, and I worked in a number of roles in companies around Toronto, financial and GIS software. So nothing too exciting. But then I decided to pursue my true passion, which was all about space exploration and building spaceships. And first, I didn't know what to do, but then I kind of decided to go through the more conventional way and completed my master's degree in astronautics and space engineering in United Kingdom. And after that, things got a bit more clear. I worked at Montreal in one of the companies, aerospace companies there. But then I got the opportunity to participate in European Space Agency mission about making satellites a platform for software applications. So if I give you hardware and software tools, you can write an app that would run on the satellite and can do anything you want with its instruments, data, and essentially entirely new direction of software industry. I worked on that mission for a while, and we saw it successfully launched in 2019 and had some traction with technology development. So I decided to pursue the business opportunities in this area. We got a bit of funding from one of the space VCs from Australia called Moonshot. But unfortunately, it's very difficult to lift off the ground in terms of viable business model in space. There's lots of cases, but not that much funding or money available easily. So we tried for quite a while, and we organized a few hackathons for developers to make those apps and test the concepts. But so far, it's still a concept that's more successful on the technical side than on the business side. I'm not losing hope, but it definitely will be a long journey before it becomes a big industry with lots of users, companies, and business cases. I didn't spend 100% of my efforts on just this. I had a number of other projects, and one of them, which I'm running right now, is a video blog focusing on the Martian colonization challenges, specifically what people would need to do after they land on Mars, what do they need to build, how to do it, more, about once you set the foot, what's actually the next step. This is an open question, and there are many challenges, and of course, there's always be something we cannot predict or expect, and it's another planet, another environment. It would be good to understand what are those challenges are for any future Martian colonies. What exactly are they subscribing to? I'm fairly certain SpaceX can deliver people on Mars in one piece, and that's difficult as it is. I think that's the easiest part of the challenge of making life multiplanetary. You also want to understand what exactly are you building, and not just the solar panels or the fuel processing plants. What kind of society, culture, and what type of people do you want to hire for your settlement project? This is again something that no one no one knows the right answer. I'm just exploring what other possible options are.
Um, is there a reason why you went to develop such a I don't know if I call it they're trying to develop a manifesto of how things need to go on Mars? Is it there is a reason why you picked Mars and not the moon, for example?
Well, yes, and actually quite a long line of reasoning to reach that. My original idea was building multiplanetary colonies in around asteroids, as every asteroid presents like a resource base independent from other celestial bodies. I was thinking of large number of settlements all around asteroid belt, each with a different type of culture, each like different tribe or different city state. But before learning how to run, you need to learn how to walk. And Martian project presents a unique opportunity because it's already offering a location that is far enough that you need to be fully independent, yet close enough to Earth, so it's at the absolute limit of today's technology, but still feasible. Plus, Mars also has two small satellites, Phobos and Deimos, which are essentially asteroids. And if you want to develop things like asteroid mining or orbital settlement around asteroid, they present a perfect opportunity to test the waters. And one important direction is this seems to be the way like general exploration and settlement, space settlement is going. So I don't want to be the one person who is trying to push the entire industry into different direction. If all the companies are thinking about Mars and Moon as an intermediate step, and I include the Moon in my plans as one of the training grounds, the boot camps, then might as well kind of join the crowd. But I do think that once we master Moon, Mars, we definitely should not stop and go beyond. There's more than 1 million small bodies in solar system, each able to support a large or small settlement. And one other project we did just recently during the NASA Space App Hackathon in 2024, we built an app to visualize all those asteroids. And you can see there all the way from Mercury to Pluto, there's always little dots, all of them pretty much like an island in the ocean where you can build your own country, your own vision of how your tribe should grow and flourish.
And what are the challenges that you're seeing to develop something like this? I'm sure it's a very complicated topic, so I'm wondering how are you starting? How are you structuring the concept, or how do you know, or how do you decide the concept of operations, or what needs to happen there and when and by who?
Good question, and I have like a very long answer, which is essentially like 16 videos on my YouTube channel. But one key principle, you don't want to start from absolute zero. You start with something that already exists and scale it up. For example, we have International Space Station in orbit. Why can't we have a bigger space station with more capabilities? We already know how to build them. We already have a body of knowledge and expertise and people who know how to operate and build them. So build large amount of large space station. That's something that you don't need to start from absolute scratch. We already have that bridgehead. Another thing, like true for anything else, you don't want to eat your entire risk budget in one go. You want to split them into like smaller increments. For example, if you want to develop a surface base on Mars, which is a big unknown, you don't want to do it as the first thing. You develop an equivalent on Earth, like the test Martian bases, Martian analog bases, and then Moon is close enough logistics-wise, only 4 days of travel. You develop a lunar base, and if anything goes wrong on that base, it's much easier to support it much easier to evacuate the people, much easier to send emergency supplies than on Mars. And once you develop a moon base, you take and a lot of technologies developed like life support or power or even things like airlock or surface operations. You can use that as the foundation for your Martian base. So you never try to jump before you learn to crawl. You kind of crawl, walk, run approach, and that would be the general principle that works in every engineering discipline. And maybe one other question, which is more difficult than what and how, is why. Like, why do we need to go to Mars or Moon or asteroid belt? We have so many challenges on Earth, and there's no end in things that needs attention, be it environment, international politics, the economy, the unemployment, the immigration. All of this takes time and effort from the people. So why don't you fix this first before going anywhere outside? And that's a very, very common pattern from people who are like opposed or not enthusiastic of space exploration. And I have an answer to that as well. First, we kind of never will run out of things on Earth. If you fix everything that needs to be fixed today, there will be next set of challenges. So there will always be work to do, regardless if we do space exploration or we don't do space exploration. And the other more like a uh, deeper answer is that human civilization for the past 5,000 years always developed with a thing that's available to humans who want to live, called frontier, spatial frontier. If you want to, not happy at your country, you can go somewhere else. And if you want to explore, there was always room to expand and explore. And until the very recent time, we had that frontier available to the people. And only in the 20th century, we kind of start to run out of this frontier. Earth is small now. It's a global village. If you look at the dates, the South Pole and the North Pole were explored in the late 19th century, early 20th century. The highest mountain and the deepest ocean trench were reached around the same time, it's 1950s. And simultaneously, the first satellite was launched, so the space frontier appeared. And for a while, and during the space race, it seems to be like we just have to, go to space and continue expanding our frontier. And that's an element of human culture that's, I would say, vitally important, like a vitamin. Without the frontier, there's no room to escape for the people unhappy with the everyday's life. Without the frontier, there's no stories to tell for the next generation about exploring and settling. It's both cultural and geographic concept that existed for most of the human history. And since 1975, since the end of space race, it's just no longer there. And you don't notice this immediately, but sort of resentment accumulates, and there's no room to escape. Think of the steam that has no. Think of the tea kettle on the fire, and the frontier is that opening for the steam to escape. And if you close that opening, the steam has no room to expand. So in the end, all the water turns into steam, and one day, it just explode and blow apart everything. So that escape valve or direction, I think it's just as important as global climate change or Middle East international politics. It's just less visible, but more time will come without humanity having that frontier open. The more and more negative side effects will show up, and people will not understand why. But there is a reason why, because humans are not optimized for living in an enclosed space. We have settled and colonized all 5 continents before we invented fire, writing, electricity. Expansion is in the humanity DNA. and we need to use that ability, otherwise it will like turn us against each other. So that's the second part of the answer.
That's amazing. So I understand that you have a lot that you talked about during your video blogs about this concept. What I'm interested I'm always interested in how any idea can be turned into an actionable, uh, practical solutions. And I do understand, of course, the colonization of Mars or even the moon, even that if it's intermediary planet or transition period, it's a very complex problem with lots of stakeholders, lots of companies. You have lots of variables, politics, funding, international cooperation, the engineering. So every part of this, and this is not even the whole list, is a whole different. It's a very big complicated thing that can, but together you kind of need them all to achieve that goal. So how do you think that it will go in order to achieve this in practical terms? Do you find that this is what's happening now? Like, is there momentum to creating this in practical sense, or do you think that everything that is proposed is more abstract in theory than practical? What do you suggest?
Great questions. Of course, we need a million things that needs to be right, and none of them will get right on the first try. But I have an answer to that. Well, based on my own experience, in space exploration, there are three pillars, and the first two is government and private industry that already doing quite a lot of things. You have rockets launched, satellites built, missions being developed, scientific and commercial. But the third pillar, which is a bit overlooked, is called community. So we ran a number of hackathons on specific challenge in my apps in space software-defined satellite. And we had very limited budget, but we succeeded in, making the concept of solution in terms of, actual code being written. So what I'm thinking of those million things, we don't need to focus on the big ones. For example, how to build a reusable rocket that lifts 100 tons to orbit. There's already companies and governments that work on this problem. But there are so many, other things that we can test and develop on relatively small budget. Like what you're going to eat on Mars, for example. Is this going to be like purely vegetarian diet? But what if I want meat or cheese? How do I transport a cow from Earth to Mars? And you don't need just one cow; you need a herd to maintain the stock. And maybe the cow is too much, so we can start with rabbits or chicken. And how do you keep time on Mars, because the duration of its day is different. And on Earth, you don't really think about that, but on Mars, there are no small things. Your schedule of delivery, your timetable is now on Martian time. So developing a clock for Mars, so a watch, is a challenge small enough that can be done by community, yet could be probably overlooked by big companies or governments because it's a problem too small for that. So you pick your fight in terms of what small things you can do on the funding you can rise and try to build it. And the community is important because in the end, you live in the community. The Martian colony will have a community. And again, coming back to what kind of society and what people will be there, that's an important thing to answer. You don't want, all right, you got to live on Mars, but it will be 16 hours working in a Martian mine for the rest of your life. You don't want to build that kind of society. And it's another, important area which people without necessarily big budgets and big influence can focus their efforts on. So community development would be my answer. There's a million of those little things, and I want to cover some of them. And of course, I don't claim to have a absolute knowledge. So inviting more people and building up that community of future Martian settlers and explorers will make the entire goal easier to achieve. They also can have a voice what should be done, how can be done. Like I'm, by myself, but if 1,000 people will say we don't want to be working, 16 hours in Martian mines, figure it out how to we can make it better. The voice of thousands or voice of millions will be heard. You know how any mass movement start.
Um, I wanted to ask you to follow up on this, but also by drawing from your experience from Exodus Orbitals as a startup company in the space sector. Um, so, in order to, I do believe in the power of markets and the power of individuals to come up with solutions and markets actually to come up with solutions to complex problems. So, how do you see the space market in general currently, and how difficult it is for companies to penetrate this market? Whether they are companies that are already established for terrestrial markets that they would like to expand into space, or whether they're new startups that would like to get into this community to develop those solutions to the complex problems for Mars, for example.
I wouldn't say it's too difficult, but it comes down to the fundraising capabilities the founder has. If you kind of start from absolute zero, there will be many years before you make progress. Like build your network of investors and customers before you start your own venture. And of course, the fundraising is one major requirement, successful fundraising, and that comes from the ability to identify a successful business model. Whatever you do must bring revenue. Whatever you do must have a large customer base and market segment which is either big today and or can show growth potential in excess of market average. And that's of course is a difficult challenge for any company, founder or the CEO of the big one. It's just all around difficult, but at the same time, it's difficult for everyone. It's difficult to make money in space for Ariane space. It's difficult competing with other launch providers that can do it faster and cheaper. And it's difficult to make money for me in Exodus Orbitals, which is probably the smallest company in the industry. So I don't have like an easy one-liner, but it's just doable, but it's difficult. That's to summarize it. Depends again, fundraising and the right business model.
And for the fundraising, I assume that the investor not only needs to have the money, but also the belief in an idea that is still new. And as you said, to have revenue from a space endeavor is harder than getting revenue from a private company for terrestrial applications.
Yes, so the investor has to believe has to believe that you can make good on your promise of making revenue. It doesn't matter, what person you are, and they're fairly open to the communications and dialogue, but you have to win them on the money part. Like, I don't care what technology you're developing, I don't care like who you are, but you have to convince me you can make money from the money I am investing into you. That's the answer.
Okay. And for your company, what were the challenges that you faced? Was it the same as just the funding?
Well,
Was there other things?
the same challenges that probably every first time founder faces, like how to do fundraising, how to do business development, how to find customers. I mean, even in what order to do, what's to prioritize, what can be less important, and you can get all the advice in the world from everyone, and you still don't end up in any better situation. This is one of those things you have to figure out by trial and trial and error, by your own experience. Well, if I'm starting my second venture, I know a lot better what should I do next. and what should I start with, and what should I prioritize. But if you do it like me 5 years ago, I just didn't know those things. And theoretical knowledge is not a substitute for practical experience. It's hard to start a sandwich shop in Toronto that will make you profit. Imagine how more difficult it is to build a space startup as your first, commercial venture. That's I know I probably will be took the most difficult path compared to other founders. Have no previous business experience, and technical expertise is only half the things you need as a CEO. You need to be an excellent businessman as well as the CEO and founder.
With respect to the limitations of sharing technologies between countries, like, there's the export control in the United
Yeah.
States, but also at the same time, the the startup world kind of has blurred the line of where you physically are in order to establish a company. So how do you find it difficult to be in the space sector since you're not, for example, do you need to be in the United States to penetrate the market, or does it matter?
Well, I think you are like the answer that you
Mm.
have to be in the United States to be more successful. Our team is in United Kingdom and Canada, and it's just more difficult to get funding, to find customers. It's the space industry, aerospace industry in every country is very much a domestic enterprise. If you are in States, you have access to US funding, US customers, US partners. Even Canadian companies have a handicap in terms of working with any US entities, and anything else, while you're limited to the country you're a citizen of. It is the answer, yes, it is. You have to be in US for maximal chance of success.
So what would you recommend that they remove the barriers? Do you find there's a
Well, you never know how things will go with United States these days, and it would be good to have flexibility of labor and capital as much as we have in like software development, software industry. I can go and work in San Francisco as a software developer, no problem with that. But I cannot go to Houston or Hawthorne as easily and work as aerospace engineer. Have to jump through a lot more hoops, and the same goes for the employer because it's more sensitive industry. And the same story applies for every country. A software developer can work anywhere for almost everyone. In aerospace engineering, that's absolutely not the case. I think at least Canada and the US can have some barriers removed, but I don't know if it ever happens.
so as nowadays there's you can't just talk about space and technology without bringing up AI. How do you see this is going? How is it going currently with AI? Are companies claiming to use it, or they are really using it?
Of
How is it
course,
helping?
of course, companies are building demos using AI technology of various kind, from like imagery and signals processing using machine learning algorithms to actual large language models running in space. I'm sure it's all can be done, but in the end, AI is just another tool, another technology where if you apply it right, it will give you benefit. And if not, no amount of AI can make money out of thin air. AI is still, the cutting edge AI technology is still very much error prone. You don't want to trust anything mission critical to a machine that does things right 9 times out of 10. The reliability requirements are a lot higher in space and defense. Right now, of course, it's a lot more hype than any useful products, but more like familiar tools, the machine learning libraries that I use it for, object detection and change detection, absolutely work on in space. We have tested those ourselves. in our hackathons. I mean, you don't need to call them AI. They're just in their, tools, software solutions to make a problem. But if you call that AI, maybe you draw more attention to your company, and that's another, marketing aspect of this demonstrations.
Um, Before I let you go, I'd like to ask you about your next steps or your vision, and
Yes,
what do you hope to do?
yes. Well, one advice, and I can give it to any person: don't plan things on hope. Make sure you have more solid foundation. But I want to continue with my, video blog. That's one thing. I have also another venture in development and related to software, more about hardware component for the satellite supply chain, which I'm looking to, fundraise for, but that's still in early stages. So if that works, then, hear more about me. And yes, there are other things in my life and on my mind that needs attention, but that's, outside the scope of today's conversation.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Dennis. I really appreciate it. It was great insight into what it means to build a company within the space sphere and what's necessary for us to do. And I'm really grateful for the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara, for inviting me. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye bye.